I don't know if people have noticed in the last several years, probably, that there's some people that have become very patriotic, right? Loving your country. It's important to love your country, to love your heritage. It is, especially if your heritage goes back to America. And yet, for decades and decades and decades now, we have had the universities, we've had all these medical and nursing associations and education associations that hate America. They were born here and they hate America. They have a gene missing, maybe. I don't know. Karl Marx was not a well person. He wasn't. He was a lazy man. He just fed off of any money that people would give him. He was, in my opinion, a loser, okay? But that's what these people, the universities, the higher educated, they just, they worship the ground that communists walked on. So, and they have done a very good job at keeping a division going. The fact is, when it comes to slavery in America, George Washington, they were all fighting that. They were trying to get away from England. That was what led to the war, okay? And the thing is, with America, every country has a history of slavery. But for whatever reason, they want you to hate America the most. And so they make you hate your own heritage. Don't do that. Don't do that. If you are standing up and you believe in your country and you believe in being patriotic, it's because you love Jesus. You do. You do. You love, because that's what we were about. And it's important to recognize that, because King James VI of Scotland, who was also King James I of England, is a direct relation to Donald Trump. And Donald Trump's not about kings. He knows America's. He's been, Donald Trump has always been patriotic man, long before he ran. So, but it's important to recognize, those things, because when there's too many coincidences to be mathematically possible, then you shouldn't see it as just a coincidence. And it was King James I of England, who was the King James VI of Scotland, that they wanted to blow up in Parliament, but they didn't get away with it. Why? Because God protected King James I. King James I wasn't the tyrant. It was King James II who was. But King James I was a good king, and he was the sixth king of Scotland, who protected Donald Trump, who was related to King James. God protected Donald Trump as well from being assassinated. All those things are important because your heritage goes back to being in a country where there was some people, that your lowland Scots and your people fleeing the potato famine in Ireland, they came here. Those people, they settled the place. They settled it. They built it up for you. Okay? Many of them many of their ancestors, live in the Appalachian Mountains today, okay? They live all over. But I'm just saying, they actually built the country up. So if you love America, your ancestors go back to that. And it's important because DEI is all about hating your heritage. What has Donald Trump been saying? This is your heritage. It's important to love your heritage. Don't listen to these overeducated fools. I don't know what happened to them along the way. Again, maybe they're missing a gene. Maybe their ancestors don't go back to the same ancestors we have. Maybe that doesn't even matter, but what does matter is it's important to love your country. And what I see and have seen for a long time is the people that don't believe in God, the people that push DEI, are always the same people that are never patriotic and seem to want you to hate America. And yet we're such a free country that those people who were born here, they could go live somewhere else. You have to ask yourself, why would you stay in a country you hate so much? They're never patriotic. The left is hardly ever patriotic. And yet you see that there's been this patriotism that's been flowing across America now because it's in your genes. It's in your DNA. Because you go back somewhere along the way to ancestors that helped settle the country, or that were related to some of the pilgrims, or related to the people that wrote the Declaration of Independence. All these things that don't say anything about skin color. But there's people here, globalists and people that support globalism, and that's your Karl Marx shit, that you have to wonder, why do they hate? Because I don't know if people have ever noticed some of these university professors, they truly have a hate for America. So it's like, is there a gene missing? I don't know. I don't know if that's what it is. Maybe they're just brainwashed all their life in the university. Who knows? But it's important to love your heritage, because when you love, because if you understand the Bible, God, if you're mature enough to be without a king, then God will give you a country if you're willing to stay focused on Him, the biblical God. Obviously, we're a country that allows other religions. Again, I'm not speaking of that. I'm not trying to say anything against any of that. What I'm trying to say is the foundation of the country, okay? Because if you believe in the Bible, and that's the people I'm speaking to, is that the Old Testament was God was dealing with spiritually immature people. The Israelites were it's like they were children. They were very spiritually immature. They could not be without a king over them. There came a point they were, but then they wanted one, and that upset God. So God always wanted people to get to a spiritual level of maturity, biblical maturity, that you don't need a king. So that's what the Pilgrims were about. Yet the DEI crazies have tried to make it out that we stole the land from the Indians. No, there's both sides. There's two sides to everything. And the fact is that George Washington was trying to protect the settlers because some Indians were trying to kill them all, okay? But then you had other Indians that were helping the Pilgrims. So it just like today, it depends on the people. It depends on who they are. But George Washington was not trying to kill all the settlers or any of that. The people that had slaves and that wanted everybody slaves, but that were bringing people on ships here, were the same establishment that Donald Trump has been trying to destroy. How is it that the DEI professors in the universities don't know that? Because they're not about you having freedom. DEI is not about freedom. DEI is about mental sickness. Karl Marx was sick, and that's what that's all related to, and so are those people that continue to push that. So the red square here, that's King James the sixth King of Scotland and the first King of England. That is the king that had the Bible translated into modern day English. That Bible has been what has spread Jesus' word more than anything with that Bible. Think about that, because if you know anything about the Bible, what did Jesus want people to do? Go on to spread his message to all corners of the world. King James the Sixth and First did that. Just by having the Bible, that version was what has reached people everywhere. So that's important, because the first king was not a tyrant. The second was. Donald Trump is related to this king. That's just strange. But we're not about kings. I mean, he knows that. That's why he doesn't talk about this. But I think it's important to mention because of the fact of the coincidences. Because Donald Trump talks about things that, this is your heritage. That's important. Because there's many universities and sick associations of many institutions in this country that want you to hate America. They want to divide people. They want to divide Americans. And that is not at all what the people that settled this country, that wrote our important documents on it, the Constitution and all that, that is not what those people wanted. Did they have fights about things back then? And what are we going to do about slavery? Yes, they did. But they coming from all over parts of the world where there was slavery. So that's the reason it makes no sense that these universities try to make America out to be so bad. It's because they want slavery again. Because if you notice something about the people that push DEI, they're very snobby and snotty. They're not right in the head. Because they believe in Karl Marx, period. So somebody had said that, I think it was a Q post. I didn't follow Q. But it was a Q post that was a quote or something about how future proofs past. Well, they tried to kill this King James on November 5th. But God protected him because he knew he would go on to spread his word, his son's word. And he did by creating the King James Version. And then, spin forward, they tried to assassinate Donald Trump. The same establishment, just with maybe different faces, obviously. And God protected him too. You have to love your country. Love your heritage. It's important. Our King is Jesus Christ. And if you hate him, you hate America.